Hey there, today we're talking about people pleasing, specifically why we do it and how we can stop doing it. But first, before we get into all of that, I want to welcome you to my channel, whether you're new here or you're a loyal subscriber. I'm Tara. I help overachievers kill it at work without sacrificing the people or things that they love. On this channel, I teach strategies for balancing it all with confidence and clarity so that you can live your best life. Because let's face it, success at work means not having to miss out on everything else in your life. So if that sounds like something that you're into, if it resonates with you in any way, shape, or form, be sure to hit subscribe here for this channel so that you don't miss any future videos. And also follow me on Instagram at Tara Kermit for daily inspiration and insights. Okay, let's start with a quick question. Have you ever agreed to do something even though you really didn't want to, but you still said yes just to keep the peace? Like maybe you agreed to stay at work late, or you took on a project that was outside of your usual scope. Or maybe you even agreed to plans with friends, even though the last thing you wanted to do was go out. You'd rather sit on your couch and binge watch Netflix. If any of this sounds familiar to you, then you were probably dealing with at some point some level of people pleasing. And here's the thing, people pleasing is more than just being nice. It's actually a pattern of behavior where you're putting the needs of others first before considering your own needs. And so, why do we fall into this trap? Well, we're going to break it down a little bit more. All right, first up, let's talk about rejection. This one's a biggie, especially for those of us that are overachievers. We have this fear of rejection, of letting someone down and not making them happy. We're worried about what others are going to think. We want to make sure that we are living up to our own expectations, but also the expectations of others. So that fear of rejection can really fuel our people pleasing tendencies. And this often stems from past experiences where we felt that our performance really indicated our value and that people saw the value in us based upon how we performed and how we showed up, either at work, at home, at school, whatever historical experiences that you've had, those all build into this fear of rejection when it comes to people pleasing. Next up, and somewhat related to this fear of rejection, is also this need for approval. So, growing up as kids, our parents likely conditioned us, whether they intentionally did it or not. Not to blame our parents, but childhood conditions us for good and bad behavior. And so when that is internalized into us, we start to, or can, I should say, start to relate our worth based on making other people happy. And then there's conflict avoidance. For me, this one is personally one of my own because let's face it, like conflict is uncomfortable. And so oftentimes we think that it's easier to say yes to avoid that conflict so you don't have to have that confrontation with someone or something rather than saying no and giving them a reason why. But the reality of it is that by saying yes to avoid that conflict, we end up creating internal conflict within ourselves. So it really just perpetuates the issue. And we end up not avoiding the conflict anyways, because we still end up in an uncomfortable situation. So that can also feed into that people pleasing because it's just easier. It's the path of least resistance to say yes versus saying no. And finally, if you're a high achiever, perfectionism can also play a role in this because you want everything to be perfect, and that includes your relationships. You also want to uphold this image of perfection, which means you're going to do whatever you can to live up to the expectations of others, no matter what that means for yourself and your own well being. So now that we know kind of where this people pleasing comes from and stems from, let's look at how to recognize it in our own lives. Here are some ways that it may appear and show signs to you that you may be falling into that people pleasing trap. The first sign is that you say yes to every single request, no matter what that means for you. AKA, you are likely overcommitting to things and stretching yourself a little too thin. The second one is that you go to great lengths to avoid conflict and disagreements, no matter what that means regarding maybe compromising your own values, behaviors, your own personal beliefs. This is also known as being conflict avoidant. Another sign is that despite every effort that you are putting into making others happy, you still feel resentful and almost like you're being taken advantage of. And lastly, your own needs and well being often take a backseat to those of others, which means that you're putting others' needs first and just completely neglecting your own self care, which is so important to notice and recognize in your life. If any of these signs sound familiar to you, don't worry because you're not alone. And I'm about to share some strategies on how you might be able to start one, getting out of this people pleasing cycle and starting to focus on yourself a little bit more. The first thing you can do is practice self acceptance. Start by validating yourself. Remind yourself daily that your worth does not come from what you do and how much you do for others. Next, set clear boundaries. Know your non negotiables, understand your limits, and communicate them clearly and consistently to others. It is okay to say no, especially when it protects your time, your energy, and your well being. And along with that, learn to say no gracefully. You don't have to be harsh when you say no. There are ways to approach your no with gentleness, with compassion, and with empathy. For instance, maybe say, I don't want to take on that project right now because I'm just at capacity. Or thank you for the invitation, but I need a little bit of time to myself to re energize and to rejuvenate. That is a way to put up your firm boundary, say your no, but still provide care and comfort to the individual asking for that request. And as with everything that I talk about, take time to reflect and adjust as needed. Be sure to really think about every request that you receive, kind of reflect on how you responded to that request, what worked, what didn't work, and then adjust your method and your process moving forward. Knowing that every situation is different, every individual is different, it's also going to kind of ebb and flow depending on the season of life that you're in. So it's really important to take that time to reflect, to think about it, and to make an action plan for future requests that may come down the line. This is where journaling can really come in handy because you have that time after experiencing the request and the response that you give. You have that time to really think about, how did I respond? How would I have liked to respond? What could I have done differently? So you can jot it down, and that almost serves as like a cheat sheet for you in the future. People pleasing is a habit, and just like any other kind of bad habit out there, it can be a tough one to break. But with that awareness and practicing some of these easy, simple strategies, you can start to really prioritize yourself and your own needs before that of others. Practice saying no, practice that self awareness, that self acceptance. Also, recognizing kind of where your people pleasing tendencies may be coming from, and that may help you address it as well. Remember that your worth isn't determined by how much you do for others. It is okay to say no and to put yourself first when you need to. Well, that's all I have for you today. Really short, quick, and to the point. But I just want to thank you for hanging out with me today. As always, I really do appreciate you spending time with me. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button, add a comment if you'd like to, and definitely consider sharing it with a friend who may need to hear this. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And as a reminder, follow me on Instagram at Tara Kermit. for daily inspiration and tips just like this, but in a shorter format. So I hope that you have another week filled with more hot successes than hot messes, and I'll see you in the next video.